In August of 2022, we decided to take a long weekend to go camping with our Scamp in Cape May, New Jersey. Now, Cape May is a pretty special place, and I've even read articles where it was voted the cutest town in the country. So that's a pretty prestigious title. We were staying at the Depot Travel Park, and luckily this is a dog-friendly RV park that is very close to downtown, so Redford was going to get to join us in all the excursions. This is our new Gazelle pop-up screen house, and this was the first trip that we were actually using it on, so we were happy to have some sun and bug protection while we were camping. We are down in Cape May for the weekend, and we decided to bring Redford. So this morning I was looking up dog-friendly things to do in Cape May because it's still summer, it's August, so a lot of things are closed to dogs like in the high season, like the beaches. So we found a couple things in the area. There's actually a few different things, and the one that was the closest to our campground was Cold Spring Village, and they are dog-friendly, so we're gonna go walk around and check it out, and Redford is pretty excited.
So don't let the weight of the world slow you down. And if you search for the meaning of life, it won't be found. So take your insecurities and leave them all behind. Let's learn to make the most of our time.
The historic Cold Spring Village is an open-air living history museum. It was an easy 7-minute drive from our campsite, and I found it on bringfido.com. It was a very highly rated activity in the area for you to do with your dog, and we wanted to walk Redford around for a while to try to get some of his energy out, so we thought this would be a perfect place to start. Now, one of the things to note is that the dog is welcome to walk around the grounds, but he's not allowed to go inside the historic buildings. So Pat and I did our little trade back and forth.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Red. And I should take pictures if you need me to make some.
Oh no, it's great. So pretty. Yeah.
There's 2 stairs on either side.
Oh.
Yeah, real small.
Okay. That was the rich person's house with 2 doors to show off your fancy room.
Because you don't go into the working area.
This is a cute tiny house.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
We were visiting on the weekend, so all of the historic reenactors were in their respective buildings showing off each of their crafts. So there was a basket weaving house, there was a house with a loom where they were creating textiles, and all of the people who are working there will explain to you the history of the building that they are in and whatever craft they are working on. So, interesting way to see what this period of life would have been like. We were talking to the ladies in the weaving house, and she said that dogs have a really important role with the process of making fabrics and weaving, because while they're shearing the sheep, they would have the dog sit on the ground, and when the dog is around, the sheep feel safe, so it would keep the sheep calm while they were trying to shear them so that they could then make all the fabrics. So dogs are very important. I wonder if they actually shear them and use it to make the wool for the loom. Maybe.
He's going crazy.
Oh, he likes the smell of the sheep.
We're best friends.
In addition to the historic buildings and the reenactors, you have quite a few farm animals on the property. This is Levi. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. The big, friendly horse that they have. And Redford was pretty interested in him too. He's not used to seeing all of these different farm animals and all the smells that come with them. On the other side of the barn, there were these 2 adorable calves, and they were just kind of hanging out by the barn, trying to stay out of the sun because it was a pretty warm day. Some of the exhibits are interactive, so if you wanted to try some pottery or learn how to do some of the basket weaving, you have an opportunity to try those things out when you get to some of the buildings. But we were heading around to the front. We made a stop at the general store, and this is where you can actually buy some of the baskets and other crafts if you are interested in taking home a souvenir. That's nice. Maybe a wet dog? Oh, don't drink it. One of the reenactors is saying that we should go to the brewery because it is dog friendly. He can actually go inside and it's air conditioned. And the building was from, I think, like the early 1800s. They disassembled it and then moved it here. And the brewery is a big part of paying for the restoration and the upkeep of all the other historic buildings here. It's really there as, she said, it's the only nonprofit brewery in the state to fund the upkeep of all the historic buildings in the property, so pretty neat. They did a good job of talking us into checking out the brewery. A historic building that is also dog friendly sounded like a good stop to us, especially because it was air conditioned. But we made our way up to the front of the property and we figured first we could probably stop and have some lunch. There's a more formal restaurant right at the front of the entrance, but we were going to check out the hot dog cart. So they gave you these coupons when you check in and get your wristband, so we figured that was a good, quick, easy lunch.
It's old timey. Old timey juice. It's very earthy. Has a bold flavor.
Right next door to Cold Spring Village is the Cold Spring Brewery. So we're gonna go see what they have, especially because this is also dog friendly. So Redford is having a really good time. These two guys were pretty happy to get some time in the air conditioning, and it's so much fun when we can just do things and go places, and Red just gets to come along with us and enjoy the things. He was pretty tired at this point, so he was just sitting next to the table hanging out. Yeah, that was really good. It was getting toward coffee time, so we left the brewery, headed back over to the village, and got a to-go box from that bakery. We couldn't leave without trying something. Then we headed back to our campsite to relax for the afternoon with our baked goods. I stopped at the farm stand just in front of the campground and grabbed some tomatoes so that I could use them for dinner. As usual, we were kind of doing things in a backwards order. So we had coffee and enjoyed the cookies we got from the bakery at Cold Spring Village, and then I got around to making some dinner. I used those tomatoes I got at the farm stand with some garlic and onion with my favorite gluten-free pasta, and this time I was putting shrimp in it. So this is a pretty common camping meal that I like to make because it is pretty easy in terms of the prep. It is very filling and it has some healthy ingredients in it. So those are kind of the things that I try to fit into a camping meal. Try not to make too many dishes. Definitely harder cooking on the stove. Like the heat is higher. It's easy to overcook things or like burn things. Good.
Yeah.
We had like a little bit of sauce with all the vegetables. We were just sitting in the gazelle enjoying our meal, which is nice because Redford can walk around. We can take his leash off for a little while, and that just gives him some space where he can feel like he has a little freedom to move around. But Pat looked over at the camper, and he noticed something was dripping. And it was in an area where you never want to see something dripping. We put our plates down and went over to investigate, and the outlet for the black tank had a crack in it, and it was just very slightly dripping. So immediately we started to close everything up, get the Scamp ready to move, and Pat hooked up the trailer as quickly as we could so he could run over to the dump station and empty it, and then we would assess the situation. As he pulled away, I was so nervous that that crack was going to turn into something much worse. I was just getting ready to show you our new Gazelle when Pat walked around the other side of the camper and saw something dripping, just a little bit, and it was dripping from a spot that you don't want to see liquid dripping from. And we were both like, oh my gosh. We were literally just talking about, I wonder how often people have issues with their RV plumbing. Well, I think we jinxed ourselves, because it was like literally 10 minutes after that we were like, that's dripping, and that has never dripped before. So we very quickly got the Scamp ready to roll, moved the chocks, I put everything inside away, and we were like, we have to dump the tanks, and now we're not going to be able to use definitely not the toilet, and probably not the gray water either for the remaining 2 days of this trip, which is okay. There's a bathroom and shower over there, and the showers are really nice, so we will survive. But we were thinking about putting a composting toilet in, and I looked at Pat and I was like, well, I guess this is our sign that we're getting a composting toilet in the Scamp. So we will see how the rest of the weekend goes, but I guess it wouldn't be an RV trip if something didn't break. So while Pat is out dumping the tanks, I will show you our new addition to our camping gear that we just got about a week and a half ago that we're very excited and happy to have, especially now, because this is where Red and I are going to hang out while Pat tries to fix things. So we got a Gazelle G6, meaning it has 6 sides, so it's the biggest one. And we got the deluxe, which means that the privacy shades and the wind shades are built in on the outside. I'll show you what that looks like, but this is great because the campsites here are really close together, so we have a neighbor like right next to us here. So we put 2 of our privacy walls down. On the other side, the Scamp was there, giving us a little bit of privacy. So right now we have those open to get some airflow. There's a really nice breeze right now, but it keeps us protected from bugs and keeps us protected from the sun. We have a really nice shaded spot right here, so sun's not so much an issue, but like when we were at Assateague last year, it was so hot and so buggy. This would have been amazing. So the next time we go to Assateague, I think we're really gonna enjoy it more because we're going to have this. Fortunately, we had just started this trip, so there really wasn't much in our tank, and I think that was very fortunate. This situation could have been a lot worse. But our RV is about 10 years old now, and it is starting to feel its age. I do feel like every trip something breaks and we get more projects. And here is the lever, and you can see it looks like a couple cracks actually. That's where it was dripping from. So tanks are empty now, we're not using that. So we'll see if we can actually change that whole casing. Even though it was August, this was our first Scamp trip of the year. We had a very busy summer since we got married in June and we went on a long trip after that. This was our first time taking the Scamp out, so we suspect it may have happened over the winter. Alright, so what's your assessment of the...
Well, there should be a beer.
It should be. I think you earned it.
Yeah. I was just sitting out there in the gazebo and saw a little bit of dripping underneath the Scamp, and that's never good. I thought maybe, I was like, oh, maybe it's from a tree, hopefully, and I was like, nah, it's this very specific spot. So I went over there and noticed that from Blackwater lever area, the release point was cracked and it was dripping. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just tighten it up and it'll be fine. Noticed the crack was pretty good. It must have happened in the wintertime. Froze, cracked somehow maybe. So I was like, I can't tighten it because it might get worse. So
we were really afraid the whole thing was gonna.
And I did touch it to mess with it, and it started coming
dripping
out.
more.
Yeah.
We were like, oh gosh.
So, and mind you, the time right now is like, when it happened was like 7 o'clock. So everybody's here, families, everything.
Getting dark.
Yeah.
We were like, oh no, we need to do this right now. I just plated up your food.
Yeah. So, I'm glad we had experience in Blackwater stuff and dumping stations, and it's not new to us. So I was like, this is emergency. I have to get this over to the dump station and let it go. So that's what I did, and luckily it didn't get worse as I was driving.
That's what we were worried about. Yeah. I was waiting for you to like pull out with the Scamp and for something to like. Yeah. So. Anyway.
Yeah, and luckily it wouldn't have been bigger particulate because it's just a crack and it was just water
dripping liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so it happens, I was just saying, I was like, there must be some crazy stories about black tanks in RV parks and catastrophic failures, and maybe an hour later this starts dripping.
Not even. It was like, and
we just sat down to eat.
It seems like it just started too, because it was a very small area.
I think I caught it right
underneath. It just a little bit. So I think it must have just started. So we're very lucky.
Yeah, we're lucky, and it didn't happen at night, and you have a big puddle.
And we can still use the gray water, right? Because it's two different systems in the Scamp. Because sometimes they share a valve, right? Black and gray. Yeah, so in the Scamp it's separate. I thought we weren't going to be able to use any of the water, but we can still. I threw all the dishes from dinner into the sink so that Pat could just get the Scamp over there. So I was like, oh no, how am I going to do the dishes? But
we were on borrowed time.
Yeah, that needed to happen like immediately.
Yeah.
So it could have been way worse.
Yeah.
I'm glad you caught that.
The glamorous life of RVing at its finest.
So fun. It is always an adventure when you go camping. You truly never know what is going to happen. But luckily, despite all the drama, Redford was blissfully unaware and fell asleep quite comfortably in the Scamp. We'll see you tomorrow for another day of exploring Cape May, New Jersey. Thanks so much for being here as we let new adventures begin, because you really never know what's going to happen.
Well, you worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be aware, and I'll be there, so don't be scared. Just take a deep breath of air, and 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again, and though time flies, we'll have enough to realize this bigger than the both of us.